Thank you very much, Peadar. We're joined here today also by the person who is the most important person in Michael D's life, and that is his wife, Sabina Coyne. And I'm delighted to welcome you here, Sabina. Sabina, of course, has been absolutely centrally involved in all of those political campaigns, human rights campaigns and other campaigns that Michael D has been involved in down through the years. She is a real driving force and an inspiration, and we're very lucky to have you, Sabina, as well, supporting Michael D in his presidential bid. Ladies and gentlemen, it now gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the person who is a candidate for all of the people, a person who, as President, will do us proud. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next President of Ireland, Michael D. Higgins.
Well, an gédal sias ta ma harfa bhuiachtas na caintóri a bhí caint faoin, aber a bhír siúlam har na decidi. Cumal is sin tá fíor cín fósio roiv galéir, gach den a gifh tá beidir, ma chaliacathe bótsin lag daibre cuish Saxon Rosme, ma gian cara a bhí lum har láris in ótsacha eile. Iad san a gúsiali na cultúrga agus cartan an dinne tá táge. Ach go háirithe an tola Peadar Kirby agus Éimean ma chaliaci a laur ma han agus tú héin ro sin an cui ina bhfuil tú car agar an ocoid seo agus trí slíam leis na ceoltóir yoga Young European Strings a bhíag sin am ceol agus muid na teachtasteach. All around the country in Nailtachtaí and Tivimwe, in areas that I have taught extramural courses in the west of Ireland all those years ago. In places I did indeed debate over the years civil rights, women's and children's rights, argued for peace against war and argued for a real and inclusive citizenship. I have got a welcome because I want to tell the previous speakers that there is a huge response in this country for a discussion on the kind of people that we want to be, the Irishness that we want to create, the Irishness we want to be, the characteristic of the way we treat each other, listen to each other, care for each other. The Irishness that people will speak of is that's Irish in the European Union and in the world and in the international institutions and in those places where they are still struggling for freedom all over the world, or forging their path to democracy. That is most encouraging. As well, too, because indeed I have been on the road now for nearly a year. And yes, it has been arduous, 23,000 kilometres since last April alone. But it has meant that I have been able to be in many different places, in cities and towns and villages and seminars. And there is a real interest in answering questions about the presidency and what my vision for the presidency is. In some of those places, too, I encountered a generous recognition, Peadar has referred to it, of my own journey for ideas and the use of ideas, not in my life only, but all, but in the life of Ireland, an Ireland that was the island of my father and my uncles from the time of the War of Independence and through the great cleavage of the Civil War and on to the present. There is a recognition of my personal journey from small farm in Clare to factory worker to clerk to student to university teacher and back into the public world to argue for equality. I have to confess a certain sadness, and that is as the 34 years came to an end, as the 40 years of campaigning went on, I did have a certain sense of sadness of colleagues who had been through so much with me. But I felt that in the next 7 years, this is the best public service I can give. I'm coming as well from an experience shared by many. As I've said, one that includes life in the city, life in rural Ireland, and immigration, an immigration that has reappeared. I have been and remain an advocate, in particular for the people who are vulnerable, in everything I have done in my political life and everything I will do for the next 7 years. It's a mark of sophistication in politics to be able to give the same centrality to the vulnerabilities of your people as you do to their successes. I know also, and this was very clear around the country in the questions I was being asked, I know how the presidency as an institution works, not occasionally considering a bill after the Council of State has been called, but last year alone there were 40 bills considered in the office of the presidency. As a candidate with cabinet experience of preparing, drafting and introducing legislation, I know the legislative process. Now, it seems to be that at least since yesterday, there is clarity on what the choice of candidates is for the people on October 27. And no doubt they will want to ask, what does the candidate bring to the office by way of experience and commitment? What vision will the candidate seek to achieve in his or her term of office? How will the candidate fulfill the various roles of the office? Constitutional, ceremonial, and very importantly, because it is how you put your stamp on your presidency, the use of the discretionary space of picking themes, picking audiences, and choosing your way of doing it so as to shine the lamp on what is being neglected, what is wider than the term of a government, but yet what is important to the people's present and to their future. For 21 years, that discretionary space has been used very particularly by Mary Robinson and Mary McAleese, and they've done an excellent job at home and abroad. And I hope to build and extend and will extend on these achievements. But what do we need now in the presidency? This has come up in the introductory talks, correctly so. To what circumstances must we respond? In my conversations and meetings and discussions all over the country, I've been stressing that we need to truthfully acknowledge how we came to be in the sorry pass where we are now, having lost so much of our economic sovereignty. We have to look at the value base of that with its radical individualism. And I've argued that we must get beyond recrimination and speak now about an inclusive citizenship, by which I mean realizing the really republican value of basing our worth on the dignity of each person irrespective of capacity or orientation or means. In a creative society that values excellence in creativity in everything, there are people here who know how, in fact, that isn't a dream, how it has been turned into thousands of jobs. They are present. But creative in how we do trade, creative in diplomacy, creative in how we bring analysis to international conflicts, creative in administration, excellence in everything. Building an Irishness that we will be proud of. And all of this as we come up to the 75th anniversary of the 1937 Constitution, and the Constitutional Convention takes place next spring. We are preparing for the challenging of building a real republic. I believe and I know what is behind these particular programme points that I have published since last May. An inclusive citizenship, the creative society, an Irishness to be proud of at home and abroad, and the challenge of building a real republic. And my record, when I was for a brief period in cabinet, is of taking beliefs and convictions and what I have listened and learned from the people of Ireland and turning them into realities. That is what I did when I was Minister for Culture. I claim no credit for it, but I wonder at the marvellous result. The youngsters you hear playing music, the people who can participate in theatres that were built around the country, the films that were made, the young actors, the animation industry. That's just one side of it. All around the country I have encountered people who are doing new things in the social economy, the caring economy, do new things in preparing artisan food, in doing all of these exciting things. I have also heard and know the deep hurt of this country. But I know the potential and the great future that the country has. Agus bhíonn Cartag Padar. It's not a choosing to do something by way of stroke for an instant, but drawing on our long heritage and genius, on Irecht, and putting it side by side with the Sauliacht that is there and that has such potential. The imaginative, creative skills of the Irish people. I want to say, I will dedicate my abilities to the service and welfare of all the people of Ireland. I am of the people. In a very broad sense, I have been with them in so much. I will work for the people. I take it as inspirational what is said, what the President says on taking office. I dedicate my abilities to the welfare of the people of Ireland. In Irish it is, Malon Yihilayana versun Lias agus Fonif Muinter na Héireann. It is a powerful dedication, but a great responsibility. I take up the tasks of others gone before me, and I invite and ask all of you, in the same way I so thank you for being with me here today, I ask you to be with me as we enter a crucial stage in our campaign for the presidency. A presidency, I believe, that will be a presidency of transformation. Garamila Mahake.
Wow. He really is something special, and we appreciate him so much, Michael D. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, we're going to take some questions now. First of all, on the presidential campaign. I know Michael D has a media engagement at 1 o'clock, so he will be heading off shortly. But we'll start with questions in relation to the presidential campaign. And if there are other questions about other issues, the Taoiseach will address those later on. So, who'd like to kick off? Yes.
Michael D, could I ask you, from the Northern Ireland perspective, do you agree that it's a good thing that Martin McGuinness has put his name forward for the presidency?
Okay. Well, I think that even if the entry conditions are limiting, and they are and should be looked at in the Constitutional Convention next spring, Martin McGuinness, having met the requirements as they are now, is a perfectly legitimate candidate. I think as well, I believe myself that that the Irish people are a very sophisticated, discriminating people. They will be able to make up their own mind, and the challenge will be to the media to put questions to all of the candidates, such questions as relate to the presidency. And that's how it will be. I hope we will get on to the issues of how we intend to fill the presidency. You know, as I look back, I believe that I was right in removing the order under Section 31 that allows precisely that, the people to make up their mind and the media to use its investigative skills.
But should the rules be changed that somebody like Martin McGuinness could not contest the presidency?
I'm afraid that's something that I think that the Constitutional Convention, to save a lot of bother, should address the issue, for example, of immigrants and their votes. It should address the issue of Northern Ireland. It should look at the issue of how you get into the race. It should look at the issue of Article 26. And really that is the place, I think, for these issues. And they deserve to be looked at.
Yes, Fiach.
Well, there's not much I can do about my age. But you know the wonderful woman who runs the National Ploughing Championship put it very well. She said, it isn't the years and the life, it's the life and the years. No, I've travelled, I think it is 23,000 kilometres since the 19th of June. I have no difficulties at all in that. And as well as that, I think something that's important is that I stay thinking. That is your thinking that's mattered, you know. I did clarify one thing as I went around the country, and that was the distinction between calling yourself an independent and having independence of mind.
Okay, everybody, that's the end of the questions. Paul?
It's a very interesting question, and you encouraged me to speculate historically. I did try to run. I was very narrowly stopped from running. But just the one vote. But my reason for seeking the nomination in 2004, I should tell you, the answer is in the book, Causes for Concern. I had been going around the country. I think particularly I was at a conference, CAFIN conference in Innis, where I'd been asked to speak about the kind of society that was emerging from the version of the economy we had. And I was raising questions about the assumption of open-ended growth and the rise in property values. So I wanted to run in 2004, in truth with little prospect of beating Mary Bachelet because she was very popular, but because I wanted the discourse. And that's important. It seems to me that that is one of the useful, valuable roles of the presidency. You can be inspirational, but also you can be critical. There were very serious issues that arose in recent years. Just think of that affirmation you make to look after the welfare of the Irish people, their benefit and welfare of the Irish people, and the balance that raises in relation to the Constitution and issues that are internationally. And you also, it's in several sections, you make a commitment to the welfare of all of the people. That has other implications as well. I'm looking forward very much, if you like, to running. I will support the convention in the spring, but I think under Article 15, which says there shall be a president, there shall be two houses, one called a Seanad, I will enter into discussions about maybe nominating some people to the review of the Constitution, but also of running a series of presidency seminars that deal with these issues of trust, being young in Ireland, the whole question of creating a vision for Europe that is beyond narrowness and so on. So these are there are a number of positive proposals that I've discussed as I went around the country.
Harry.
We talk about using the available space, but the available space is limited by the Constitution. There is a constitutional convention to take place next year. What are your views on extending the powers of the presidency? Do you have any views on whether the role of the presidency could be extended by the Constitution to take it away from its quite limited powers at the moment in some areas?
Yeah. Well, the 1937 Constitution had as one of my students now, you'll be able to remind me. I think of But it had one final article, and it was that there would, whatever amendments that were going to take place would take place within 3 years of the first incumbent of the office, Douglas the Heather, taking office. And what happened was you had an omnibus set of changes. They changed, for example, the rule about you couldn't have a majority decision of the Supreme Court, a bill having been referred. There were a number of other changes like that, but they didn't address some substantive things. I think the Convention on the Constitution, I think government is doing a good thing by having it. I think it'll be doing an even better thing by publishing the report speedily. That is, I think, understand within 12 months. And all these issues should be looked at, including the ones I just mentioned. But there are others as well. The limit of the presidency is in Articles 12 and 13. But I have been very careful as I went around the country to make sure that anything that I was suggesting was within the limits of the Constitution, because that's the only way of being practical. You also have to respect something very important with the public. It's a huge mandate. Everyone who's entitled to vote votes for the presidency. It's an enormous mandate. You are independent of the government of the day. You are neither the handmaiden of the government, nor are you an organising principle of opposition to the government of the day. You are one of the pillars of the Constitution. You're required to protect the Constitution. You're required to remember you're not representing yourself but Ireland on the ceremonial duties. And then you bring, that's the character of the presidency, you bring then in that discretionary space, which I think was used by Mary Robinson and Mary McAleese. Mary Robinson to identify, for example, homelessness and shelter, remember very early on. And then I remember, of course, that was Mary Robinson, and most recently Mary McAleese, in realising that even if we have a formal statement of peace, you have to build relationships between communities and so on. So really, that space has been identified and worked. And I decided I would, in my campaign, make definite proposals about how I would operate it.
Do you think Stephen Harris should publish the outstanding matters?
Well, I think I'm not the person to ask him the question. I think he will probably be asked. But I'm really, frankly, there is probably nobody happier than me that we're past 12 o'clock, that all the candidates are in the field. I think at this particular stage, I think that the debate from now on should be what the different candidates are bringing. I believe that my own experience is wider. I think that my roots in many ways are different. I think the fact, that whether I said no, is cuma matamig lords and gaeltach, nooks and gaeltach, I believe that I bring more to the post. I think I'm offering a vision that I can deliver, and I may believe that I'm the better candidate. And the debates will decide that, I hope. But I'm very happy with the support I'm getting so far. Now.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to wrap it up there. Thank you for coming along and for giving us your time. Michael D is heading off to his engagement now and is hitting the road to resume his campaign. So thank you again. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.